Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Innovation Podcast, your source for all things innovation. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, today I have Timothy Peterson on the line. He's Chief Marketing Officer and Chief Digital Officer over at SportsBiz Group. Timothy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure.
All right, so I'm excited to get into today's topic. So I understand that you have a new SaaS product that you're launching, and you're looking at some seed funding. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot going on at SportsBiz Group. But before you get into all of that, let's just get started with what you're doing overall. Tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
Sure. SportsBiz Group is a sports sponsorship analytics platform. We're tentatively titling that platform Deep Sport, which we think is a great, intriguing name. And we're focusing in on products that help out athletes, teams, leagues, associations, venues, and events all figure out how to optimize their sponsorship dollars. So really, it's a blast, having a great time getting this thing up and running.
Oh, that's exciting, and I think it gives you really a unique vantage point into the industry and sports sponsorship in general. And I think this is a great transition. Let's get into the SaaS product that you're launching and kind of why you decided to go this route and what you think that's going to look like.
Yeah, I think it should be exciting to your listeners. What happened is about a year and a half ago. Prior to my involvement, the founders had gotten together and they all had deep experience in sports in one way or another. A sport agent, a founder of a lacrosse league, a part team owner of a NASCAR team, and so on. And they were thinking they were going to create some sort of media-based company, bringing together people who are really interested in sports and putting new formats, let's say, of content out into the world with all of these great connections. But they soon realized in their conversations there was this big gap. There was this big opportunity. They'd worked with a lot of people in sports sponsorship, a lot of brands and a lot of people on the receiving end of all of those dollars from brands. And there wasn't really a lot of great data. It turned out that people weren't really able to track very clearly how well things were doing or how well things could do for any of the folks that I was mentioning at the head. It could be an athlete and their sponsor, or the sponsor looking at the potential athletes or whoever to work with. So really they just started that to go out and build a database and to put a platform on top of it to access that data, leading to what we created since I've joined is really a SaaS model, a software as a service model, with licenses that are going out to all of these different kind of user groups to dig in.
Wow, that's really interesting to me because I would have never known. So my specialty is obviously media and social media, and I work more on the influencer base, not as much on the sports side. So in this case, it sounds like possibly the sports or the kind of that side of things were a little bit behind what the influencer model was already doing, because from that end, like, that's our bread and butter. If you can't show the analytics behind what you're doing, like, you don't get paid. But I guess athletes, and when you think about like drivers or name celebrities and things like that, maybe they never had to do that because they had their name, so that hadn't been developed, and you're really bridging that gap there. Wow, that's amazing.
It's great stuff, and really what had occurred is that you're right, they are behind, and it's kind of surprising in some ways given how many dollars are in sports. But part of it is sort of the legacy of how these sponsorship deals used to come together. It really used to be something that people would call CEO choice. So the leadership of a company would say, we like golf, or we like tennis, or we like football, and that's how a brand would determine who they were going to be sponsoring and exactly how that would work. Of course, that's not really the optimal way to do things. Really, there are better ways to look at what, the data that's out there and really determine the best value. So really, that's where we've come in and just helping people out from all of these different angles, determining value and really showing opportunity as well. It's really both of those things.
So what, when we say sports, and a lot of people listening right now, business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, some of them heavily involved in sports and in teams. I've actually interviewed quite a few. That being said, what are the, what markets are you going after in sports? Just so that at the end of this, again, I'm going to give the opportunity for people to follow up on what, and I want to make sure the right types of markets and or people do follow up. What are the markets you're going after in sports?
Sure, good question. I mean, really, it is brands that already sponsor in sports. That is one target market for us. Brands that are considering sponsoring in sports, maybe they haven't done this at all and they're really just wondering about the opportunities there. But really the big surprise, I think, to a lot of people is that we're also working with leagues like Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, and we're also working with athletes directly or through agents, teams themselves, all of these different components in the sport world. And also just the listeners should hear too, we're not just focused on in-person live sport. We're also working in esports and online sports betting as well, because there's really a lot of interest there in trying to figure out how sponsorship works, because it's relatively new for a lot of different people.
Yeah, for the esports guys and all. I mean, it sounds amazing. Like, I just think it's going to bring so much. I guess I'm speaking from the influencer side of things. But what I love about that part of it is that, in the past, dollars were spent. Like, I didn't have the term before you just gave it to me, CEO choice, but it might have been just somebody heard about a certain thing that they thought, hey, let's try this, let's see if it works. But as these dollars grow and become more meaningful, and as influencers or athletes or other personalities, whatever we want to call everybody, as they drive meaningful revenue to companies, it's really important for the talent side of things to be able to track that and to have the analytics behind their case. Because if not, then they're not necessarily building their portfolio or their body of work and how they've been able to help companies and therefore increase their prices over time. Versus in the back, let's just say in the celebrity world or the sports world, maybe that the CEO choice, like you said, but number one or number two, maybe somebody gets a big contract, and so now they're in the news again, and so now they're on the radar of other people again, when they may have done had a lot of value to brands that aren't in the news, but isn't necessarily tracked. So it kind of hurts them, especially if they retire or they're out of or after their career, being able to continue to work with those brands per se, unless you're like a Michael Jordan. But even in that world, there's only one Michael Jordan.
Exactly. And, one of the things that, we've learned, and that's been a lot of fun to talk about, is that, you're talking about influencers. Well, a lot of people individual athletes on team rosters, let's say it's the NFL, just for example. Mm-hmm. Every NFL team has about 99 players, right? I mean, that's something a lot of people kind of forget. They actually go through the process of getting that many players on a team roster. But really, even if you're a rabid fan of any particular team in the NFL, are you really personally going to be aware of who all of those people are? And, looking at it from the flip side, those athletes are trying to make their fans aware of what they're up to and, build value in addition to just being great athletes and having a great time. So it's wonderful just being in the middle of all that, collecting this data and saying, well, wait a minute, these folks who are, quote unquote, in the bottom half of the roster, look at all these people with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers across all of these different social channels and how engaged those fans are. So why aren't you, sponsoring that athlete, or why isn't there a relationship there as opposed to these top 3 or these top 10 that everybody knows about?
Oh, so smart. And thank you for putting some meat around that one, because that is, you nailed it. Like, that makes so much sense, and it's really clear now. And it also, and for brands out there that maybe for me, it expands the market also, because for brands that may have been outpriced or thought they couldn't, get an athlete or sponsor or have an athlete work with them because they couldn't afford maybe those top three. This opens up and expands the overall market, and it shows people what's more available. And there may be, wherever they are in the roster, may be opportunity for somebody to work with a professional team that they would have wanted to, that they didn't even know they had the opportunity to. So I think that's really exciting work that you're doing over there. So we're about out of time for this show, Timothy. But that being said, to close out, final two questions. So I know that right now you're raising some seed capital, and I know let's talk a little bit about that, and let's also talk about how people can follow up and get more information if they want to learn more.
Sure. So, SportsBiz was founder funded until this stage. So they've gotten pretty far along with development of the product and building things out. But now's the time for us to go out and seek funds at another level. So we're very openly seeking $4.5 million, which we think is all that we need really to get out in the world and make a big name for ourselves and grow from 2020 into 2021. So that would be, listeners have those checks and want to write them, we would love to talk to you. That would be great. And the second part to answer that specifically, I'm very reachable. I'm Timothy J. Peterson on LinkedIn. There are many Timothy Petersons, but you can find me there. Or my email at SportsBiz. I'm happy to share that. It's Timothy@sportsbiz.com, and our website is sportsbiz.com. Sports, plural, biz.com.
Fantastic. Well, Timothy, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about all the great work you're doing over at SportsBiz Group. And I'm excited to see the SaaS platform launch and to see really you disrupt the sports space and how sponsorships are done over the long haul. I mean, really exciting stuff you're doing over there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Innovation, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Timothy, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam. This has been great.